I will now recognize the gentlewoman from Tennessee, Ms. Harshbarger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today. I do have a question for Secretary LaRose. I know that Ohio did a great job in 2020 with election integrity, but not every state did as well as Ohio, okay? I live in Tennessee, and I think we did a pretty good job, but you spoke about your Security Directive 3.0 to protect elections in Ohio. Could you explain this measure and how states could implement this in a successful manner to have secure elections?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much, Congresswoman. This built, of course, on our first and our second security directive. So this is just the third iteration in these checklists that we're giving. This one's a 31-point checklist that we're giving our county boards of elections. We're giving them a few months to get this done and bringing some funding to the table. What we did is put really strict new standards in place for vendors. Our election officials rely on a lot of vendors, and if they're not secure, then that could harm the integrity of our process as well. Stronger physical security requirements, working with DHS to do physical security audits. If you've got the best cybersecurity in the world, but your server closet is left propped open or unlocked, then that's not going to help you too much. Better vulnerability disclosure, and specifically requiring vulnerability disclosure for our vendors so that they can leverage the power of the private sector, of the ethical hackers out there to find where things are wrong. And then, of course, also prohibiting election equipment provided by foreign vendors that are on the restricted list that the federal government maintains. These are just some of the things that we're doing. You can talk about several other items as well, like better vulnerability scans that are being put in place, but those are the highlights.
Yeah, tell me about that vulnerability scan. I read that and I'm like, tell me how this works.
Yeah, so what we're doing now is requiring the boards of elections to let the vulnerability scanners inside the door. It's like a home inspection. If you are buying a new home and the home inspector can only look at the outside of the home, yeah, they're going to find a few things, a roof or whatever else. But if you actually let them into the basement, if you let them go up in the attic, that's when they're really going to find if the house is in good shape or not. And so this new vulnerability scan that we're requiring the boards of elections to do brings the folks that are doing those inside so they can get inside of the systems and really take a deeper look at what's going on in them.
Well, makes sense to me. I'd certainly want them to look in my basement or my attic if I had an issue with my home. Now, you talk about cybersecurity efforts, and can you tell me a little bit about what you're doing in Ohio? Because with that security directive, looks like you're requiring local elected officials to include, or election officials to include, cybersecurity terms in their contracts.
Absolutely, and that's how we enforce it with vendors, right? So when our boards of elections engage in a contract with a vendor, in many cases, these are boilerplate contracts that have been used for many years. We're now requiring them to include cybersecurity terms in that contract. And the simple fact is, if you can't abide by those terms, then you can't contract with the county board of elections in Ohio. You've got to be able to live up to the terms of that contract. So that's just another step that we're taking, again, to make sure that these vendors that our boards of elections are so reliant on can meet the cybersecurity standards that we've set for our boards.
You know, you hear about things, and I heard when I went to Nashville and talked to the legislators, I think the early part of the year, there was a problem in one of the counties with the Dominion machine that every 6th vote it kicked out, and they caught that because more people showed up to vote than there were votes. So, you know, there has to be measures in place in any state and in every county to make sure that there's no question about the integrity of any election. And, you know, that 31-point checklist, that's something I would like to take a look at, honestly. Make sure that we're doing that in Tennessee or anything that we can make do with and implement. I know that my county where I live in went to paper ballots this year, and you have to show your driver's license, paper ballot. It all has to match up. And, you know, that ensures safe elections, in my opinion. Okay, I thank you for that, and I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman.